Hello guys and welcome to the Surfing Connoisseur. As you're probably aware, we're about to head into Pipeline, the final event of the 2017 World Championship Tour. And as always, I'm going to run you through my fancy surfer selections. Let's go. I'm sure Pipeline's a break needs virtually no introduction to the majority of surfers in the world. It is a heavy as hell left-hand reach break. However, that is only traditional Pipeline. There are other faces to the break, including the right-hander at backdoor, which is equally as heavy but offers quite different challenges and appeals to a different style of surfing. There is also the very small but possible chance we could get small to no surf for the contest, in which case it'll run on the sandbank. My team is largely based around if we get a good Pipeline type of year. However, that said, when we start looking through my selections, you'll see there's definitely been some funky heats over the years. So whilst there are some guys who have been super consistent there over the years, there are equally some guys who have thrown up some surprisingly strange results. The waiting period for the Pipeline event is from the 8th until the 20th of December. Chances are we're going to get some decent surf in that window, which is exactly the reason I have picked my team around surfers who will perform good at Pipeline and or backdoor. I've aimed really at heavy waves as opposed to the left or right hand aspect, looking at the event as a whole in the past. I'm not really going to go into the surf forecast for this event because the waiting period being longer means we could run further into the window and you really can't start looking that far ahead. It's about 3 weeks away from now, so there really is no point in doing it. I'm just crossing my fingers for some big heavy surf. Given that we're on the North Shore of Hawaii at this time of year, the chances are we'll get something if I haven't just cursed everything by saying that. Before I go into my fancy surfer selections, the Women's World Championship Tour has already concluded in Maui and Tyler Wright has taken her second consecutive world title. So congratulations to Tyler, and also congratulations to Groundswell, who topped our clubhouse in the Surfer Mag version. I'd encourage anybody who's not already a member of either our clubhouses to check out the links below and join our clubhouses to begin with a chance of winning the leagues. There aren't any prizes available, but hey, maybe next year if we can get a little larger maybe and get some connections with some shops and companies, that might be possible. But turning back to Pipeline, it is going to be a hell of an event. There's 4 people still who can take out the world title: John, Geordie, Gabby and Julian. I'll whack a link in the description below to a really cool little article the World Surf League have done. With no further ado, let's jump into looking at my Surf Mag team for the Pipeline event. Now, opening up with John Florence. He's going to be super highly picked, and I know you meant to try and avoid those types of guys to try and get one up on everyone else, but there is no way I'm missing John for this event. He's obviously going to be super keen to win the event, which takes place in his back garden. One of the ones that he has openly talked about wanting to win but has yet to do. There's a lot riding on it for him this year in that he has to put in good results to fend off the other 4 contenders, so there's going to be so much motivation for him there to do well. You only have to look at the fact that he sat out of the World Cup at sunset to focus on his Pipeline preparations to show how serious he's really taking it. If you need any other reasons to why you should pick him, you only have to look at his previous results at Pipe. He finished in the quarters in 16 and 14, round 5 in 2015, and he was a runner-up in 2013. My next selection is a little more risky in terms of previous form and previous happenings, but I'm going for Owen Wright. Owen Wright's formidable in heavy left-handers, and if you YouTube him, has had some amazing waves at Pipeline in the past. He has also had a horrific injury at Pipeline which saw him sitting out a season, so it is a bit of a risky pick in that selection. However tough and hard and good a surfer is, I'm sure going through a wipeout like that must make things difficult for you, but if anyone can, I'm sure Owen can. His career has in the last few years been plagued by injuries, not just the one at Pipe, there was the back injury before that, so his actual track record of results at Pipe is pretty low. In the 4 years that I've been looking at for all the surfers, I've only got 2014 to look at for Owen when he finished in round 5, so it's more his wave that I've seen him on there and his other results in left-handers which I'm guiding myself by. He also comes in at a pretty reasonable price. I would say to get the best out of Owen, you'd really be hoping for a traditional Pipeline or at least the left-hander to be working when the event runs, as backdoor is notoriously difficult for backhanders to surf, and Owen is of course a goofy foot right. Next up I'm going for one of the veterans on tour now, Joel Parkinson. Nothing particularly amazing like John Florence's run of results and maybe people like Gabriel Medina, but Joel comes in at a pretty good price and has a fairly just average run of results with a good one in 2013 when he finished in the semis. Other than that, he finished in round 5 in 2016, round 5 in 2015 and round 3 in 2014. However, the 2015 and 2014, he seems to go out in some of those funky heats that I mentioned at the start of the video. In 2015, Adam Melling beat him with a 5.17, and in 2014, Sebastian Zietz took him out with an 8.93. So the low scoring heats really would be indicative of somebody of a bit of a freak heat rather than isn't one of those evenly matched where there's plenty of waves for everybody to go on. And I think you can put those types of things down to bad luck as much as you can bad surfing. Moral of the story, if you go for Joel Parkinson, I guess, would be cross your fingers for good consistent heats. Next up I'm going for Sebastian Zietz. There seems to have been a reason for every year Seabass went out early too. So in 2016, when he went out in round 3, it was to Josh Kerr, Kersey only having a 7.33. In 2015, he also went out in round 3 in a super close heat to Jeremy Flores, who only beat him by 0.21. In 14, he lost to the eventual competition winner Julian Wilson in round 5, and in 2013, he went out to the eventual competition winner Kelly Slater in the quarterfinals. So there seems to be a fair enough reason for every time Sebastian's gone out earlier pipe. I've had him for the rest of the year, so why not keep him for the final event of the year? Mick Fanning, who I've still got a super cheap $4,500. Not only is he super cheap, but he also has a really good track record at pipe. He did not compete last year as he was on his sabbatical from the tour, but other than that, he's got semi-finals results in 2015, in 2013, and in 2014, he went out in round 5, and it seemed like one of them funky heats where he was beaten with a 6.53. So now as we get down to the lower seeded, cheaper selections, where it gets tactically a little more difficult, I'm going first for Physique Clow. He's from the island of Howe, which is clearly going to give him a little bit of an advantage, although it is worth bearing in mind that he's from the other side of the island. He does, however, specify pipeline to be one of his favourite waves in the world. This is going to be his first time competing at pipe whilst on the World Championship Tour, so we don't have any previous form to look at, but he's certainly got the attributes to perform well there. He's a big, powerful surfer, and I think he's got a round 1 heat that he does have the capability of winning, particularly if it's in big, heavy surf, as he goes up against Michel Perez and Felipe Toledo. Next up, I'm going for Italo Ferreira. Whilst his previous form at pipe isn't particularly good, with a round 2 exit in 2016 and a round 3 exit in 2015. The 2015 one being one of those funky heats, though, to CJ Hobgood, who only had a 6.74. Italo's been injured this year. He missed 3 events early on. Other than that, he's had a fairly good year, really, in terms of results. For somebody at his price range, that is. He is, however, on the bubble for qualification, so he does really need to put in a good result if he's not going to be relying on the injury wildcard for next year. Although his previous form at pipe isn't that good in terms of results, he has proved himself in heavy waves, and because of those injuries he had early in the season, he's coming in at a pretty good price. I'm rounding out my team with Kelly Slater. Although it's not clear at this point whether he will compete, I think from the articles I've read, it seems likely that he will, and from the things he's been putting on social media about going over to Hawaii, it certainly seems like he probably will do. His track record there is second to none, with a semis in 2016, a quarters in 2015, a round 3 in 2014, which is a bit of a blip by Kelly's standard, and winning the event in 2013. If Kelly doesn't compete, I will try and update my team, obviously, if some news comes in that he won't be there. And if I do update my team, I will share it on my social media platforms, so check out the description below if you're interested in seeing that. Worth noting at this moment that there aren't any wildcards up for selection on the Surf Mag version, so if and when they're announced, I may end up supplementing, changing around some of my bottom tier guys. Again, check out the description below for my social media links, and I will update on there if I do make any changes. Jumping over to the World Surf League, I have tried to keep my team as similar as possible. I have had to make a few changes though. First one comes in tier 8, where I've kept John Florence, but I've actually been able to add Gabriel Medina. I would have loved to have Gabriel in my Surf Mag team, but both him and John are far too expensive to have both of them. It was definitely a case of one or the other. Gabriel has surfed really well at pipe over the years. A couple of blips in 16 and 13 where he finished in round 3. In 2013, it's notable that he was knocked out to John Florence, which isn't anything to be ashamed of. And in the 2 years between that, 2014 and 2015, he was a runner-up both years. I've also had to incorporate one change in my tier B, where I've been able to maintain Mick Fanning, Joel Parkinson, and Sebastian Zietz. I've decided to include Felipe Toledo. It's not necessarily the type of event you would expect Felipe to win. However, looking at the rest of the guys in this tier, it's worth noting his average heat score far higher than anyone others in this tier. Also, on the point of that, John Florence is heads and shoulders above everybody else. Anyway, back to tier B and Felipe Toledo. As I was saying, it's not necessarily the type of event you would expect him to perform well in. Big heavy waves aren't his particular thing, but who said we're going to run in big heavy waves? We may end up at Beach Park, in which case his aerials and stuff like that are going to go down a treat. What's more, he has started to prove himself as he's grown up and got bigger in bigger and heavier waves, and he's certainly no slouch in them, and his track record at pipe is not the worst. With a round 5 finish in 2016, although he went out early in round 3 in 2015, it was to Mason Howe, who ain't no slouch at pipe, and it was a funky heat, Mason only having a 6.93 and Felipe only being half a point behind. In 2014, he made it all the way to the quarters, only to be knocked out by Gabriel Medina with a 4.30, and in 2013, he went out in round 2, which again doesn't sound great, but it was in the old style format where there was a load of Hawaiian locals in the early heat. Rounding off my team in tier C, I've been able to maintain my selection selections of Italo Ferreira and Kelly Slater. Those are my picks, guys. I would love to know what yours are, so please use that comments section below and let me know what your thoughts, predictions, selections are. I'd love to hear what they are, and I'm sure people will check it out too and take from your advice as well. If you found these videos useful at all, whack that like button. And this is obviously the last video like this for 2017, but I have every intention of being back in 2018, so hit that subscribe button and I will see you next year. In the meantime, I will try and get up some more surf related content. If you'd like to see some of the other videos that we do here, whack that rectangle button right there and you'll be able to see the other type of content I do. Thank you again for watching, guys, and I will see you soon.